Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans, from a diehard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. Feel free to add as many additional qualifiers to that statement to make it true. I am a creative multi-hyphenate, an entertainer, but most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. Most people don't know this unless you listen to the podcast regularly, but I'm the Jester they named TC Jester after. I spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now, I'm podcasting. We all have podcasts out here in LA. It's the law. G'day, mates, and bienvenidos to new listeners. This is a comedy/Houston sports show. Comedy because I'm a silly goose. And I'm just ridiculous all the time. And a Houston sports show because I am from Houston. I love Houston sports show. We try not to be too emotional or hot-takey, ridiculous sports guy on the show. Look, it's been a while since I've done one of these, so I'm stumbling through what I should say, what I should know how to say regularly. But we try not to take anything too seriously here on the show. We try to remember we've elected to be sports fans and enjoy this life that we have as best we can in this wild world. On today's episode, we're just going to take stock of the Houston sports scene. We're going to talk Rockets. We're going to talk about their playoff loss. We're going to talk Astros. We're going to talk about how they have been inconsistent this season. We're going to talk about your Houston Texans. They have a NFL schedule released, and we'll talk a little bit about the Houston Comets at the end of the episode. I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. They're both Milford men. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans. And shout out to the subscribers on the Substack. Check out SpaceCadetSports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my mumbles. Goodness, I used to say this quicker, but I guess I've been trimming this down for a while. We're going to have to trim this intro even more. As always, we're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, The Roz. To my Frasier, Carla the dog is here with me, and longtime listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. We listen to women on this podcast. Let's get to it. Vamos. Oh, goodness gracious. And for those of you who listen regularly, who have been waiting, been holding your breath for a new episode, I apologize. You know that I have a new baby. Baby Katarina is 3 months old now. Carla is excited to talk about. All right, well, Carla has calmed down. Let's get to the Houston Rockets, folks. The last we talked, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've had a podcast, and folks, I apologize, but the last we talked about the Rockets is they were still battling from a 0-3 deficit against the LA Lakers. Of course, that was a tall task to come back from. They weren't able to do it. They got bounced out of the playoffs by an injury-ridden Lakers. It's frustrating. I was definitely bummed about it for a while. Still am in my emotions. I think if I had to do a podcast immediately after the last game, I'd be a little angrier. But really, I think it comes down to what I was talking about all season long about the Rockets, is what are your expectations? And, before we traded for Kevin Durant, I was on the side of like we don't have to trade for Kevin Durant, run the young core back. And then when we did trade for Kevin Durant, I'm like, you know what, this could be good. I don't think I'm not trying to say I regret the Kevin Durant trade. I know a lot of people are saying that. I think either way, you cut it if you're running the young core back or trying to get Kevin Durant acclimated to the squad. Both were tall tasks, and then with the injuries, that was that made it even tougher. Losing Fred VanVleet, losing Steven Adams, and then for the playoff series, losing Kevin Durant. Those are a huge three people to lose in a playoff series. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people that are being critical are saying that we've known that this team would be without Fred VanVleet for quite some time. And no moves were made at the trade deadline by GM Raphael Stone. A lot of people are very critical of the general manager of the Houston Rockets right now. I get it. I think he does deserve some criticism for the roster really not completely working out. I think too, it's a tough roster for Ime Udoka, the head coach, to coach based off of what he kind of likes. He's not. He's proven himself to not be an offensively minded coach. He's more defensively minded. I tried to use some tact to say that, but I have been critical of his of head coach Ime Udoka's offensive game plans, just not really meshing with the current squad as well. Like when they were the young Rockets and able to crash the boards and get a lot of points in transition, that kind of lax laid back offensive game plan worked, but they worked to turn that offense into a half court offense this season with Kevin Durant. And when Kevin Durant was taken out of the games, or even for substitution, the offense suffered. It just There wasn't a lot of creativity. So for me, I blame that on head coach Ime Udoka a bit, or are you somebody who blames it on some of the players? And some of the players that have been getting the most blame online are obviously Kevin Durant, who was not very injured, didn't miss very many games in the regular season, but was a huge absence in the playoffs. Just the absence of Kevin Durant, the fact that he missed one game where he could have been on the sidelines rooting the team on, the huge fact that the season was embroiled in scandal in 2026 because of news, whether it's fake or not, of a Kevin Durant burner account where he was critical of just about everybody he's ever encountered. So that has gotten a lot of fans upset at Kevin Durant, that he ruined the team chemistry. I think that didn't help team chemistry. I'm not trying to be delusional, but I don't think I pin most of the blame on that scandal. I think team chemistry wasn't going too great before that scandal, and I think working on getting the team to mesh in this type of a season, in this type of environment, is tough, especially when your head coach doesn't seem to have any interest in helping the team mesh. For me, I do put some blame on Kevin Durant because he was absent from the playoffs, but I don't know if I completely buy into the narrative that the team chemistry was ruined by Kevin Durant. I think the Rockets signed Kevin Durant knowing the type of player that he was. I think a lot of these young players knew what type of mentor Kevin Durant is. He's not a person that is unknown in the league. I think a lot of people know what they signed up for or knew what they were getting with Kevin Durant. So that team chemistry thing it's tough for me to buy. And the other player that gets a lot of critique, just about up and down the roster. If you go on Reddit, you'll find a critique of every single player. But the next biggest, if Kevin Durant is 1A, Alperen Şengün is 1B. A lot of fans are critical of Alperen Şengün. That Şengün just was not as dominant as he was last season. He wasn't as athletic or offensively gifted as he was in the FIBA Cup. I think I think it's tough for me to be that critical of Alperen Şengün. Yes, when you watch the series, he did not seem to have the gifts he had last season that he had against the Warriors or for Team Turkey. I get it. He was lacking a little bit. He did seem to pick it up when their backs were against the wall, which was a huge sign for me. The fact that Alperen Şengün stepped up, gave the team a pep talk, the fact that he took on the leadership role when Kevin Durant was gone, and he was like, guys, we need to fight for our lives here. We need to fight to keep this team together, and played better with his back against the wall. I appreciated that. Would I have liked to seen Alperen Şengün, play with that fire in his belly the whole series? Yes, of course. But they're still a young core. This is the second youngest starting five in the history of the NBA playoffs. So, there is going to be some room for growth. And it's hard to watch that growth when you had higher expectations for this team. But with this team without Kevin Durant, it was hard to see them consider them beating the Lakers. And I know the Lakers had their injuries too, but this just goes back to when we drew the Lakers in a playoff series. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this is great," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know. This just seems like a trap series." But I don't know where were your expectations? How do you feel about the Rockets? For me, the fact that they aren't moving on from head coach Ime Udoka or Raphael Stone, that's the rumor. That isn't the worst thing for me, that they're going to run this back and try it one more time, because this team can grow and they can potentially get some free agent additions that help, more than Dorian Finney-Smith did. And I'm not trying to be overly critical of him, but, they can find some more role players. They can find some people that might mesh better with the stars they have on the team and with the head coach. There could be a redemption season for the Rockets, or it could be another tough season and they have to, we don't want to say rebuild, but maybe readjust. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you think I'm being too optimistic, or if you agree with me, or just let me know who you blame. We can talk about that all off season. Play the blame game. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side with some Houston Astros stuff. We'll be
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, folks. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr., and sitting here with Carla. Since we last talked, which was the last week of April, the Houston Astros have not found much consistency. And to make matters worse, on top of their injury-ridden season already, they lost Carlos Correa for the season. Carlos Correa has already had surgery and is on the mend, but we should not expect him back until next season. Huge bummer, huge loss, but if there's any team that could take losing an infielder, even somebody the caliber of Carlos Correa, the Houston Astros have plenty of infielders. But really, as we've talked about on this podcast in the past, Carlos Correa was kind of that swag leader. He was kind of the vibes guy, especially when the going got tough. He's the type of player that puts his finger in your chest and kind of gets you going, motivates you to be better, or boosts you up to be the best you can be. Losing that type of a player, losing that type of a guy is going to be tough, especially seeing that Jeremy Pena is still out. But good news on that. We'll get to that. But let's just kind of recap kind of the games we missed here on the podcast. Now, as you know, I always watch all the games. So me and Carla and baby Katarina, we all saw these games. We just have been busy and haven't been able to podcast about them. The Astros took let's see. They took they took a trip to Baltimore there, and had to play a doubleheader. Lost that series to Baltimore 2-1. Got to play Boston on that road trip and beat Boston 2-1 in that series. Had a tough series against the LA Dodgers at home, which was not very fun for me to watch that series, especially being in LA. They lost that series. Salvaged one game, but as you can tell, losing two series and only winning one is not what we expected. They finally won a game in Cincinnati on a quick game road trip to Cincinnati, blowing the Reds out 10-0 on that first game. However, they lost the next two games with very little offense, which was alarming against the Reds there. Then they got to return home for a 4-game series against Seattle. Was really thinking for a second that they're going to be able to split that series, and they didn't. They lost that series to Seattle 3-1, only being able to win one of those games. And folks, as you can tell, we are not trending in the right direction. Yesterday, they were able to win a game against the Texas Rangers, at least behind a Spencer Arrighetti gem, winning that game 2-0. So far, it has not been a great season for the Houston Astros. They are 18-28. I had to double check that to make sure I was reading that correctly. It is correct. They are 18-28. However, the good news, if there is any good news about the Houston Astros season so far, is that they're only 6 games behind the Athletics for the lead in the American League West. The Athletics are 23-21, just hovering above 500. And folks, it is still May. So while we're talking about the Astros, I think the most important question here is it time to bring out the official Space Cadet Sports Houston Astros panic meter? Let's see here. We'll look at it. We'll have to look at it. Starting the season off this atrociously, we have to at least look at it. I think when we're looking at this panic meter, it is still very low. Very, very low. And it just says, we need pitching. And that's the truth, if there ever was one. Houston Astros pitching staff this season has, there's no other word for it. It's been atrocious. It's been tough because we lost Hunter Brown. Tatsuya Imai is adjusting to the league very slowly and, in fact, had arm fatigue, was down with an injury for a while. And Christian Javier just wasn't ready, whether his arm wasn't ready or whether he just needed more adjustments and somehow injured himself. The poor guy just wasn't ready. El Reptil, we were wishing him health. But that huge blow to the rotation out the gate put a strain on the bullpen, put a strain on Mike Burrows and Lance McCullers Jr. to really steady the storm here. And right now, arguably, Peter Lambert and to a bigger degree Spencer Arrighetti have been a huge plus to this rotation. The rotation is still steadying itself. The bullpen is still steadying itself. Brian Abreu, while he's been getting better, he did lose his job as closer to Eniel De Los Santos, or it's kind of been a who's available type situation for the closing job. It's either been De Los Santos, at times it has been Brian King, young lefty Brian King, and at other times, just because of necessity, it seems like they've put Brian Abreu in that situation. It has been tough going for the Astros without Josh Hader solidifying the back end of that bullpen. It has been tough going. You either way you look at it, you don't have starters, you don't have an answer for closer. Your strength is your middle relief, but only when they're used appropriately. It has been tough going for the Houston Astros pitching staff. There is some relief coming for the Houston Astros pitching staff with Nate Pearson potentially being able to join the team after the Rangers series, joining the team on the road for the Minnesota series coming up. Also being able to join the team would be Jeremy Pena, who has been on rehab assignment and took a tumble, which was scary to see, but looks like he will be coming back. We need him so badly. We need his bat so badly. We could use his defense, that's for sure, but we need Jeremy Pena's bat in this lineup. And Jake Myers will be returning. There has been some, with Jake Myers and Joey Loperfido getting injured this season, there has been opportunities for so many people to play in the outfield. We've had Bryce Matthews get hot and then get a little cold and then get hot and cold again. Zach Cole has been in the outfield there. We've seen we've seen some players get added on waivers and get DFA'd. We've seen some veterans be added to the team. It's been tough going, and there's been so many injuries that at some point you're kind of like, why? With all due respect to Nick Allen, why did they trade Mauricio Dubon away again? They're trying to be under a certain tax, limit, not having the payroll too high for Mauricio Dubon. With all the injuries that the team has dealt with this season, and with the way Mauricio Dubon is balled in Atlanta, that trade's looking a little worse by the day for GM Dana Brown. And while we played the blame game for the Rockets, there is a huge blame game going around for the Houston Astros right now. With people blaming GM Dana Brown, with people blaming manager Joe Espada, with people blaming owner Jim Crane, and of course, the athletic staff and certain players on the team. For me, look, I don't blame manager Joe Espada too much. There's definitely some moves that have been a little baffling. There's been, every manager makes some weird choices from time to time. But if you look at what he's been given, I don't blame him as harshly. He's done a good job. I would argue with the Houston Astros in the last couple seasons, and this season he just does not have the hand at the poker table to beat anybody. It's been tough to see this team have to battle so much through this tough pitching. Hopefully it's getting better, but when the team is pitching well, the team seems to not be hitting well, and that has been tough tough sledding for this team. They've been doing well generally, hitting, making some improvements, but I think with their backs against the wall, they've had some really tough moments, and that is that's not been great to see. So we need Jeremy Pena back because we need some good vibes back on this team. But I guess at the end of the day, just I'm not panicking too much because I'm hoping we can get the pitching right, because I like this pitching coaching staff. I like what the hitting coaching staff has done with this team, and I don't think manager Joe Espada wears the blame as much as a lot of critics say he does. GM Dana Brown. Now, I think a lot of people are very critical of him. I am semi-critical of him. I think there's been some interesting moves, but the reason I am not so critical of those moves is because I think those moves are made at the request of owner Jim Crane. I think, I really think that stuff like, we need to make sure we're under a certain, at a certain limit for the payroll is coming from Jim Crane. That move isn't Dana Brown being like, oh, well, Mauricio Dubon is too expensive. It's Mauricio Dubon is too expensive because the owner has said we're not going to pay over this and we need the flexibility. Now, I'm not saying that Jim Crane should be the owner of the Dodgers or the owner of the Mets and just be, or the owner of the Yankees and just be, signing huge payrolls every year. But at the same time, if we want to compete with those teams, we need to spend something. And at the end of the day, if Mauricio Dubon was too expensive for the team, that's a little alarming, you know. So for me, blaming that completely on GM Dana Brown is tough because that's a directive coming from the ownership. Now, still, he could have made better moves to keep the payroll at a certain limit and still having some flexibility. So maybe that's where the criticism for GM Dana Brown is. But I, for one, am looking at Jim Crane and wondering how much of the blame is on him for not wanting to spend more, for wanting to have his fingerprints on the Astros by, going back to those old contracts of Rafael Montero and, I just wonder if he kind of put the Astros in the hole back then by wanting to have different GMs and wanting to have things done certain ways. But maybe that's just me. Going forward for the Houston Astros, I do think getting some players back from injury and actually winning some series is what they need to do. Today, they are playing the Rangers again. They need a sweep like no other team. Not just because they need the wins, but because they need divisional wins and because they need momentum. They are 4-6 in their last 10, which isn't great. But when you look at the top of the division in the AL West, all these other teams are 5-5 in the last 10. There's not a lot of world beaters in the AL West right now. If this team can catch fire and have a hot summer, if they can have a hot girl summer, they're going to be all right. Now, I'm not saying, they're going to win the division. I'm just saying that they could be all right. They need to catch fire now. They need to win series now. And they have enough of the pieces right now. People are coming back from injury. They can make it happen. And I like this squad. I like Braden Shoemake. I like what the combination of Bryce Matthews and Zach Cole have been doing. I think with Jake Myers back, perhaps they can, if Jake can just provide a professional bat, those two guys can still take advantage of this opportunity and get some playing time and get hot. One of those guys can heat up and take a spot, or at least hold down a spot for Joey Loperfido. And if Jeremy Pena is back, that means we have that infield of Christian Walker, Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, and Isaac Paredes, with Braden Shoemake coming off the bench. Yainer Diaz is still injured, so we need Christian Vasquez to have a decent bat. Defensively, I think with Vasquez and Salazar behind the plate will be okay for now, but this team still has the makings of something. Of a team that has enough potential to get a wild card and potentially sneakily win a division. It still has that capability. The rotation right now would be like Spencer Arrighetti, Mike Burrows, Peter Lambert. We have Lance McCullers Jr. and Kai Tang. I think with Nate Pearson being added to that rotation, if he's able to pitch better than Tang, and Tang could go back to that long relief spot, we're pretty solid. And then we have Josh Hader. If Josh Hader comes back healthy, that bullpen is great. I think we have a lot to be optimistic about if everybody can come back healthy, and if they're playing to their full potential. Maybe this team could catch fire at the right time. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about your Houston Texans and some Comets news. We'll be right back.
H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. This is the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. We're doing a kind of how are the Houston sports teams doing type episode. We talked about your Rockets. We talked about your Astros. Now it's time to talk about your Houston Texans schedule. So the 2026 schedule, we'll start with the preseason. Preseason starts on August 13th. They're going to play the San Diego Chargers. They're also going to play that next week. They're playing the Raiders. And the week after that, they're playing the Panthers. So those are your preseason opponents. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to week one. Week one, Sunday, September 13th, they're playing the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be a home opener against the Bills. Bills Mafia travel, so make sure you get those opening day tickets, folks. It's not going to be just nothing but Bills fans there. Week two, at home, Sunday against the Bengals. Both of those are early games. And the first road game is in week three. That's going to be against the Colts. And then at home, week four, against the Cowboys. That's going to be a fun rivalry game. That's going to be a nice, loud home game. Week five is going to be away at the Titans. And then week six, they're going across the pond. The Houston Texans are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars at their home away from home overseas. They'll be in London for that game, week six. So that one's going to be a very early game that Sunday. That's going to be October 18th, week six. Week seven, they're back stateside playing a home game against the Giants. Week eight is the Texans bye week. Week nine is going to be October 8th. That's going to be afternoon Sunday game away at the Chargers. Week 10 is at the Browns. Sunday game there. And week 11, Thursday night football. Thursday night game against the Colts at home. Week 12, we have the Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravens at home. That's another Sunday one. Sunday night football, week 13, the Texans have another primetime game playing the Pittsburgh Steelers at night for Sunday night football. Week 14, that's going to be an away game, by the way, at Pittsburgh. Week 14, back to Sunday morning football. They're playing the Washington Commanders at Washington. Week 15, they're playing the Jaguars at home. That's another Sunday game. For week 16, that's a Thursday night game, prime time, against the Eagles at Philadelphia. And then back-to-back primetime games. Week 17, Monday night game against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. That's going to be a fun one. Might be a cold one. And definitely, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be a pretty good team. So that'd be fun to watch. Week 18, they're playing the Titans at home. And that's going to be a TBD. That's a flex game on week 18. That's your Houston Texans schedule, folks. So yeah, I think out of all of the things, I in my heart, I was like, I don't want any overseas games. I'm not big into it. I don't care. But I'm kind of excited that they're going to London. I think it'll be fun. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure the players, it's different if you have to go to London as a player. But I'm like, yeah, I'll get some memes out of it. Get to see get to see some funny stuff on social media out of it. Getting to play. We haven't gotten to play Jacksonville. Well, I mean, I think we have. But getting to play Jacksonville in their home away from home, that's pretty fun. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think that's going to be a fun season for your Houston Texans. But let me know what you guys think about the London game. If you're pro London or anti London, I thought I was anti until I really saw it on the schedule. And it's like I'm really not that anti. I don't know. Maybe it's just having a daughter has softened me. I'm not that angry anymore. I don't know. Let me know, folks. And with that being said, oh wait, the Connecticut Sun have officially been okayed for sale to the Fertitta family, and it is official. The Houston Comets will be playing WNBA basketball back in Houston. And I hesitate because I'm like, wait, doesn't Travis Scott still own the copyrights the copyright to the name Houston Comets? I think he does. I don't remember the news saying that that had been settled. So Houston sports franchise to be determined might be coming to Houston. But I'm excited about WNBA basketball officially being back in Houston. We have been following the Connecticut Sun on social media. If you follow us at Space Cadet Sports on, sorry, that was a soft S at the end there, but that is at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram. We're definitely excited about that. It's a very bittersweet thing. I know, look, I used to be an Oilers fan. We talked about this on the podcast. We talked about this on the blog. I don't take it lightly that this is a sports franchise coming from another city that is going to miss it. But I am excited about having basketball. You know, it's not like I personally stole the franchise. I'm not the Grinch of WNBA franchises. Maybe I am. Let me know in the chat, folks. Am I the Grinch of WNBA franchises? Let me know in the comments. But you know, I do know that they will be missed in Connecticut. You know, but there's nothing. You know, there's nothing that was done with ill will to get this team to Houston. So I am happy to have the Comets back. Let me know how you feel about it. If you have mixed feelings. If you don't have any feelings about it whatsoever, let me know. If you think I'm the Grinch of WNBA, let me know. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, and all that jazz. We're a small podcast and only go as far as our listenership takes us. We're supported by listeners like you. So please share us with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. Reach out on social media at Space Cadet Sports. Or call in. You can leave a message. That's right, don't call me personally. Even if I know you don't accept calls, you know that. You could leave a voicemail on the interwebs at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. Or you can go comment on the Substack. Let me know if you think I'm the Grinch of the WNBA. Just go to spacecadetsports.substack.com. You can be a subscriber there for free and get all of these podcasts directly into your email boxes. That's right. Or, you could be a premium subscriber if you want to help me buy some diapers for baby Katarina or some treats for co-producer Carla. She gets a treat every time the Astros hit a home run. It's been a tough season for her. It feels like the bases have been loaded and are still loaded for the Astros. But if you want to help get treats for her, you can be a premium subscriber on the Substack for a very low monthly cost. But you don't have to. You know, the free membership still gets a lot of things, so go check that out either way. And if you've made it this far, you must like me and all my weird jokes, my weird ramblings. You can find me rambling more on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. I don't even know my own handle anymore. It's been a while since I've done this. You can find my other Substack on the interwebs as well. All my other nonsense if you're nasty. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston, and abolish ICE.